Prologue: I went to my best friend's wedding ready to celebrate, only to walk straight into a Category 5 disaster. The groom was a no-show. To save both families from total humiliation, I had a moment of alcohol-fueled insanity. I grabbed the microphone and announced, "He won't marry her? I will." I thought it was just an act, a temporary fix to get everyone through the day. But later that night, staring at a freshly signed marriage license and my new ice-cold bride, I had a horrifying realization. I'd accidentally gotten myself married. For real. Chapter 1. The Runaway Groom. And now, let's give a huge round of applause for the man of the hour, the handsomest guy in the room, Mr. Jake Thompson. The MC's voice, professionally amped up, boomed through the hotel ballroom sound system. A spotlight instantly swiveled to the grand entrance, and every guest craned their neck in anticipation. I was at the head table. As the best man and the guy who'd been practically brothers with Jake since kindergarten, my palms were sweating. I reached for a glass of water to wet my throat. 1 second passed. 2. 10. The entrance remained empty. The upbeat music was still blasting, but the mood was quickly souring. The applause died down, replaced by a wave of whispering that soon threatened to drown out the Bruno Mars track. Next to me, Jake's dad, Mr. Thompson, had a smile frozen on his face. Across the table, the bride's father, Mr. Rossi, looked like he was about to flip the entire table. His expression was thunderous. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I pulled out my phone, intending to call Jake, but a new text was already on the lock screen. From Jake. It was one sentence. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I had to go. I can't live without her. Take care of my parents for me." My brain short-circuited. That son of a bitch. He'd actually done it. He'd run off. On his own wedding day. I knew exactly who her was, a girl Jake had dated in college. His parents had hated her, claiming she wasn't from the right kind of family, and they'd forced a breakup. I never thought he'd pull a stunt like this, a last-minute, dramatic escape for true love. But what about the bride? What about Isabella? What about the hundreds of friends and relatives sitting in this ballroom? I glanced at the head table. Isabella's mother was already dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Mrs. Thompson's lips were trembling, and she looked utterly lost. The MC was sweating bullets on stage, trying to improvise with lame jokes about Chicago traffic, but nobody was buying it. What's going on with the groom? Don't tell me he got cold feet. This is a nightmare. That poor bride. She's absolutely stunning. The whispers felt like tiny needles stabbing in my ears. I looked at Mr. Thompson, who seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Then at the furious, stony faces of the Rossi family. A surge of protective anger, mixed with the whiskey I'd been drinking, shot straight to my head. Jake was my friend, but his family was like my own. He'd just thrown a grenade into their lives, and I couldn't just sit here and watch both families get torn apart by the shrapnel. I picked up a glass of whiskey from the table and threw it back. The burn seared my throat and lit the fuse on the last rational thought in my head. Chapter 2. "You won't marry her," while I shoved my chair back and, under the stunned gazes of everyone at the table, strode toward the stage. The MC saw me coming and looked like he'd been thrown a lifeline. He rushed to hand me the microphone. "Well, look at this. The best man has something to say. I bet you're here to tell us our groom is just stuck in a little traffic jam, right?" I ignored him, taking the mic. The alcohol churned in my stomach, but also gave me a reckless surge of courage. I scanned the crowd, my eyes finally landing on the woman at the head table. She was dressed in a magnificent white gown, her back perfectly straight, and she hadn't said a single word through this whole ordeal. Her name was Isabella Rossi, Jake's fiancée. No, his ex-fiancée now. Ever since I'd met her, she'd had this cool, untouchable air about her, as beautiful and remote as a marble statue. Jake used to complain that she was too cold, that he couldn't break through her shell. Right now, all I felt was a deep sense of pity for her. "Hey, everyone. Friends, family." I started, my voice trembling slightly with adrenaline. "What Jake did today, it was wrong. He's a coward and a fool, and he doesn't deserve a woman as amazing as Isabella." A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the ballroom. I didn't stop. I was yelling now. For him to run off today shows he has no respect for the Rossi family. And he sure as hell has no respect for his own parents. An irresponsible guy like that doesn't deserve a wife. I paused to catch my breath, the whiskey buzzing in my veins. I looked at Isabella, at her calm, unreadable eyes, and the words just came tumbling out, surprising me as much as anyone. Jake won't marry her? Fine. I will. The entire ballroom fell dead silent. It was like someone had hit the pause button on reality. Everyone just stared at me, mouths agape. I could see my own mom in the crowd, her eyes as wide as dinner plates. My heart was hammering against my ribs, half from terror, half from the exhilarating rush of having done something completely insane. Into that frozen silence, the bride's father, the patriarch of the Rossi family, a man who had been silent and imposing all day, slowly rose to his feet. He didn't look at me. He looked at his daughter. Isabella, he asked, his voice calm and steady. What do you want? For the first time, Isabella moved. She lifted her head, her gaze cutting across the room to meet mine. There was no anger in her eyes, no sadness, just a profound, unnerving stillness. Then I saw her give a slow, deliberate nod, and in that moment, I knew I was in serious trouble. Chapter 3. The marriage license. The rest of the wedding reception was a surreal blur. Somehow, I went from best man to groom. The MC, stammering his way through the script, and the guests, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity, watched as I took Isabella's hand and went through the motions of the ceremony. Her hand was cool to the touch, like polished stone. The reception ended quickly, with guests leaving with enough gossip to last a year. As for me, I was invited by both sets of parents into a private suite at the hotel. My mom and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, and Isabella's parents. It was a 6-person firing squad. My mom looked like she wanted to wring my neck, but my dad held her back. Mr. Thompson just kept repeating, Alex, you shouldn't have had to do this. I'm so sorry, son. While Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Rossi cried together. The final verdict came from Isabella's father, Mr. Rossi. He looked at me, his tone leaving no room for argument. Alex Carter, I want to thank you for stepping up today and saving our families from complete disgrace. However, you said the words. The ceremony happened. There are no takebacks. My daughter will not be publicly humiliated twice. My head was still fuzzy from the whiskey. Mr. Rossi, what are you saying? I'm saying, he paused, his voice like granite, that you two are going to make this legal. What? I croaked. My parents were stunned. Frank, don't you think this is a bit rash? The kids barely know each other. It's not rash. Mr. Rossi cut my father off. Half of Chicago was at that wedding. If they don't get a marriage license, the whole thing becomes a joke. How is my daughter supposed to show her face in this city ever again? I was speechless. I thought I was just putting on a show, helping everyone save face until the dust settled. I had no idea that once I stepped onto that stage, there was no getting off. I looked to Isabella for help, for any sign that she thought this was as crazy as I did. She just sat there, perfectly composed, as if this was all happening to someone else. In the end, under the escort of our 6 parents, Isabella and I, 2 people who were practically strangers just hours ago, were driven to City Hall. I was still in my best man's tux. She was still in her wedding gown. The clerk at the records office gave us a look you'd normally reserve for aliens landing on the courthouse steps. Photos, signatures, a stamp. When 2 copies of the official marriage certificate were slid across the counter, I felt like my life had been hijacked. I, Alex Carter, a 27-year-old marketing manager with a perfectly normal life, had just sacrificed myself on the altar of friendship. I got married. Chapter 4. The wedding night at the condo was supposed to be Jake's. High-rise building, stunning views of the city, professionally decorated. The irony that I was the one moving in with his bride wasn't lost on me. After the last of our exhausted parents finally left, the silence in the enormous living room was deafening. A huge, decorative red love sign on the wall seemed to mock me. The awkwardness was so thick I could barely breathe. I looked down at the crisp paper in my hand, the marriage certificate. The photo on it was grim. Isabella and I looked less like newlyweds and more like 2 hostages in a proof-of-life picture. The adrenaline had worn off, replaced by a tidal wave of regret. What the hell had I done? So, Isabella, I said, clearing my throat. Look, today was a complete accident. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking straight. You don't have to take it seriously. She was on the couch, having changed out of her wedding dress into a simple white dress that only accentuated her cool elegance. She didn't look at me. Was all she said. I pressed on, desperate. I mean, we don't even know each other. This certificate is just a piece of paper. Maybe we could, wait a few months until the gossip dies down, and then quietly get a divorce. We can just say, irreconcilable differences. After a long silence, she finally looked up, her beautiful eyes studying me. She held my gaze for what felt like an eternity, making my skin prickle. Then she spoke, her voice as crisp and cool as ice cubes clinking in a glass. Alex, yeah. As of today, you are my legal husband. She picked up her copy of the certificate from the coffee table and waved it slightly. Signed, sealed, and state certified. I was completely lost. Right, but if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right, she interrupted. Jake made a mockery of both our families. We're the only damage control we have left. As long as the world believes we are a real couple, we cannot afford a single mistake. My tongue felt thick in my mouth. What are you trying to say? I'm saying, she said, standing up and walking over to me, looking down at me with an authority that was both terrifying and impressive, that until I say so, this marriage is not ending. She then pulled a neatly printed document from her purse and handed it to me. This is a post-nuptial agreement. Read it. If you agree to the terms, sign it. I took it. The pages were dense with clauses. Party A, Isabella Rossi. Party B, Alex Carter. 1. During the term of the marriage, both parties shall maintain separate and private personal lives. 2. In public, both parties must present the image of a happily married couple and shall not, under any circumstances, reveal the true nature of the marriage to any third party. 3. Party B will reside in the marital apartment and will be responsible for daily household chores, including the preparation of all meals. 10. Party B may not request a divorce. The dissolution of the marriage may only be initiated by Party A. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a marriage agreement. This was an indenture contract. I looked up at her. Her expression was perfectly neutral, as if she were closing a business deal. It was then that I fully understood. I hadn't just gotten myself into a mess. I had gotten myself into a legally binding catastrophe. I had played the hero, and the price was my freedom. Chapter 5. A glimmer of normalcy. Our life together began in a state of bizarre, quiet civility. I moved into the guest room of the condo that should have been my best friend's. Isabella took the master suite. A single wall and an entire galaxy of awkwardness separated us. In those first few days, I truly understood what Jake had meant when he'd called her cold. Isabella operated like a highly sophisticated robot on a fixed schedule. Wake up, go to her high-powered job, come home. She didn't watch TV, didn't listen to music. Most evenings, she disappeared in her home office. We barely exchanged 3 sentences a day, usually limited to I'm home, dinner's ready, and I'm done. It also didn't take me long to discover her secret. This glamorous, successful woman who worked in a skyscraper downtown was completely useless at basic life skills. Her refrigerator contained 3 bottles of sparkling water and an expired carton of Greek yogurt. The pots and pans in the kitchen looked like they had never been touched. On the 3rd night of our cohabitation, I got home late from work to find her sitting at the dining table, silently eating a cup of instant ramen. For some reason, it made my chest ache. On impulse, I heard myself say, "Don't eat that. Give me 10 minutes." She looked up, her expression a mixture of surprise and confusion. I didn't explain. I just went to the kitchen and opened the fridge, which I had stocked from a grocery run that afternoon. It was now filled with fresh vegetables, eggs, and meat. 10 minutes later, I placed a bowl of steaming, creamy tomato pasta in front of her. "Here," I said. "Eat." She just stared at the bowl. The steam rising from the pasta seemed to soften the perpetually frozen expression on her face. She picked up her fork and took a small, hesitant bite. She ate slowly, quietly. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of a real, living person in her, not just a polished, untouchable symbol of success. From that day on, I took over all the cooking. I'd always loved to cook. I even secretly ran an Instagram food account with a few 100,000 followers called Urban Eats. It was a part of my life I'd never even told Jake about. Now, my contract wife had become my primary audience. Barbecue pulled pork, honey glazed salmon, spicy buffalo wings, Philly cheesesteak sliders. I made something different every night. In return, Isabella's silent indifference slowly evolved into quiet compliments, like the soup is good today, or this might have a little too much salt. I knew the iceberg was beginning to thaw. Just a little. That weekend, my mom called. She announced that she and my dad were getting together with Isabella's parents to come visit the happy newlyweds. A jolt of panic shot through me. I immediately went to find Isabella to give her a heads up. She was in her office reviewing a thick binder. After I explained the situation, she just glanced up. Okay, you handle it. How can I handle it by myself? I said, exasperated. We need to at least look like we're in love. She closed the binder and looked at me. And how do we do that? Do you need me to feed you? Or should I tie your shoes for you before we leave the house? Her sarcasm shut me up. No, not that. I coughed. Just act natural. Don't let them suspect we're faking it. Got it, she said, her tone clipped. At 2 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Our 4 parents swept in, their arms loaded with housewarming gifts and bags of groceries. Oh, my sweet girl, my mom gushed, immediately grabbing Isabella's hands with a warmth that was almost suffocating. Isabella flinched almost imperceptibly, but managed a small smile and said, "Hi, Mom." I quickly took their bags, getting everyone drinks and arranging fruit on a platter, trying to play the part of the happy host. Our parents settled on the couch and began observing us like scientists studying a new species. Alex, you better be good to Isabella. Don't you dare give her a hard time, my mom warned. Isabella, if Alex does anything to upset you, you call me. I'll take care of it, Mr. Rossi added. Isabella and I sat side by side, stiff as mannequins. Suddenly, Mrs. Rossi pointed at my neck. Oh my, Isabella, what is that? Did you do that? I instinctively touched my neck. Crap, it was a mosquito bite from the other morning that I'd scratched raw. I was about to explain when Isabella leaned over, her fingers lightly brushing against the red mark. She looked at her mom, then shyly lowered her head. Yeah, she mumbled. In that instant, all 4 parents exchanged knowing, triumphant smiles. I was completely frozen. Her head was still bowed, but I could have sworn the tips of her ears were turning a little pink. Who knew this ice queen was such a phenomenal actress? After our parents left, I closed the door and let out a huge sigh of relief. Thanks for that, back there, I said. She didn't look at me, already walking to the kitchen to get a bottle of water. It's in the contract, she said coolly. But even with her chilly reply, the air in the condo felt a little warmer than before. Isabella worked incredibly hard. As a project manager at a top consulting firm, she often came home late, looking drained. One night, she came home looking particularly defeated. She kicked off her heels at the door, threw her briefcase on the floor, and collapsed onto the couch without a word. I had just finished making a late-night snack, a creamy chicken and wild rice soup. Seeing her state, I brought a bowl over to her. Bad day? I asked gently. She kept her eyes closed and didn't answer. I knew she wasn't the type to respond to prying questions, so I just pushed the bowl closer to her on the coffee table. You should eat this while it's hot. It'll help. After a few minutes, she sat up and began to eat, her movements slow and deliberate. The living room was silent, except for the soft clinking of her spoon against the bowl. When she was halfway through, her shoulders seemed less tense. I decided to venture some advice, speaking casually. You know, when a boss gives you a hard time, it's usually not about you. It's because they're incompetent and trying to shift the pressure. The better you are at your job, the more they see you as a threat. Her hand paused. She looked up at me. I offered a small smile. With people like that, you can't fight fire with fire. You have to be smarter. Make them think every success is their idea, that you're just the one executing the plan. When the project is a hit, they get the credit and you get the results. Everybody wins. It was just some corporate philosophy I'd pieced together from articles and podcasts, but it felt relevant. She studied me, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. How do you know about things like that? I shrugged, making something up. Same stuff happens at my company. Corporate life is the same everywhere. She didn't say anything else, but she finished the rest of the soup in a few quick spoonfuls. The next morning, on her way out the door, she paused and said, "Thank you for the soup." A couple of days later, I overheard her on the phone on the balcony, her tone confident and relaxed as she delegated tasks to her team. I guessed her problem at work had been solved. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching the faint smile of relief on her face as she hung up. A strange, Warm feelings spread through my chest. It felt good to be needed. Chapter 8. My number one fan. Our relationship slowly settled into a comfortable rhythm. We were still in separate rooms, but we could talk and even joke like normal roommates. One evening, we were both on the couch, watching a movie. Isabella was scrolling through her iPad when she suddenly gasped. "What's up?" I asked. "The food blogger I follow just posted something new," she said, holding the iPad out for me to see. "Look at this. His slow-cooked short ribs look absolutely incredible." I leaned over and nearly choked on my soda. The account on the screen was mine, Urban Eats. The latest post was a picture of the very same short ribs I had made for dinner the night before, complete with my usual cheesy, heartfelt caption. "Oh, you follow that guy?" I asked, try to keep my voice steady. "I love this account," she said, her eyes shining with a kind of admiration I'd never seen from her before. "He calls himself Urban Eats. His food looks amazing, and he writes these really warm, comforting captions. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I just scroll through his feed. It cheers me up." My heart was doing gymnastics. A mix of shock, delight, and panic washed over me. My contract wife was my number one fan. What were the odds? "Oh yeah? Huh, looks pretty good." I mumbled, my heart pounding. "I wonder what he's like in real life," she mused, resting her chin on her hand. "I bet he's this really gentle, kind, older guy who just loves life, you know?" Older guy? I rubbed my clean-shaven chin and decided it was probably best not to shatter that particular illusion just yet. I never imagined that this little hobby of mine, this anonymous account I used to document my passion and fight off loneliness, had been a source of comfort for the one person in my life who needed it most. Seeing her face light up while looking at my work, a new thought began to take root in my mind. Maybe this ridiculous, accidental marriage wasn't a total mistake after all. Chapter 9. The Brotherhood is over. The peace was shattered by a ghost from the past. Jake was back. He called me right after I got off work, his voice tired and broken. We agreed to meet at a local sports bar we used to go to. He looked terrible. He lost weight, his skin was tanned and weathered, and he had a scruffy beard. The confident, golden boy glow he used to have was completely gone, replaced by a desperate, bloodshot look in his eyes. "She left me," he said, chugging his beer. "It was never about me. It was about my money. As soon as my cash ran out, she took off with some rich old guy." I looked at him and felt nothing but cold indifference. "You reap what you sow. So why are you back?" I asked flatly. He wrung his hands, putting on a pathetic, pleading look. "Alex, come on. We're best friends, right? Thank you for covering for me at the wedding. That was solid. But I'm back now, so I think it's time you gave me Isabella back." The chopsticks in my hand snapped in two. "Give her back to you?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jake, what do you think she is? A jacket you left behind that you can just come and pick up whenever you feel like it?" "No, that's not what I meant," he said frantically. "I was an idiot. I panicked. But I love Isabella. I always have. I know I messed up, but I'm back to make it right, to spend my life with her. You and her, that was always fake. Just help me out, man. Talk to her. Tell her we can get a divorce." Before he could finish, my fist connected with his jaw. He stumbled backward with a grunt, knocking over a table and sending beer bottles crashing to the floor. I grabbed him by the collar, hauled him to his feet, and got right in his face. "Listen to me very carefully, Jake. First, the moment you abandoned her at the altar, you and I were done. We are not friends. Second, Isabella is my wife, legally, and nobody is taking her from me, especially not you. You don't deserve her." I shoved him away, threw a few bills on our table to cover the damages, and walked out. I could hear him cursing my name behind me, but I didn't bother looking back. Some things, once you throw them away, you can never get back. Chapter 10. My wife, I thought Jake would get the message, but I had underestimated his capacity for shamelessness. The next afternoon, my phone rang. It was Isabella. Her voice was tight, with a mixture of fury and exhaustion. "Alex, can you come in my office?" "Now." My stomach dropped. I grabbed a cab and raced downtown. As I approached her building, I saw a crowd gathered near the entrance. In the center of it all was Jake, holding a ridiculously large bouquet of roses, tearfully professing his love to Isabella, who had just walked out. "Isabella, I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. I can't live without you, Bella. Let's start over." Her colleagues were staring and whispering. Isabella stood frozen, her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. She looked like a trapped animal. Rage burned through me. I pushed my way through the crowd. I snatched the bouquet from Jake's hands and slammed it onto the pavement. Then I pulled Isabella behind me, shielding her with my body. "Jake, have you no shame?" I snarled, my eyes blazing. He looked shocked to see me, but then his expression hardened. "Alex, get out of the way. This is between me and Isabella. It has nothing to do with you." "Nothing to do with me?" I laughed coldly. I reached back and took Isabella's hand, lacing my fingers through hers. I turned to face the gawking crowd and raised our joined hands. "I'd like to introduce you all to someone," I announced, my voice ringing with authority. "This is Isabella Rossi, my wife. As for this man," I gestured dismissively at Jake. "I have no idea why he feels the need to publicly harass her, but I can assure you it will not be happening again." My words hung in the air, sharp and clear. Everyone went silent. Jake stared, speechless. Behind me, Isabella trembled slightly. I felt her hand tighten in mine. You too," Jake stammered, pointing a shaking finger at us. "From now on, you will stay away from my wife," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Or the next person you'll be talking to is a police officer." Without giving him another glance, I turned, and with Isabella's hand held firmly in mine, I led her away from the scene. The afternoon sun felt warm on my back. In that moment, I felt like a knight, and I was protecting my queen. Chapter 11. Identity revealed Jake's public stunt had deeply unsettled Isabella. He'd even started calling her parents, pleading his case, and begging them to intervene. That night, a heavy silence hung over the apartment. I cooked all her favorite foods, classic barbecue ribs, garlic-roasted broccoli, and a rich beef stew, but she barely touched them. We ate without speaking. Later, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, Isabella came and leaned against the doorframe. "Alex," she said quietly. "Yeah," I answered without turning around. I could feel her eyes on me. Her voice, when she spoke again, was full of a complex mix of hesitation and resolve that I had never heard before. "What if?" she started, then paused, as if choosing her words with extreme care. "What if I said, I don't want to get a divorce? Would you be okay with that?" My hands froze in the soapy water. The faucet was running, but the only sound I could hear was the frantic thumping of my own heart. I turned around slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. What did you just say?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she picked up her iPad from the dining table and tapped the screen. "I was looking at Urban Eats again today," she said, her voice soft. My stomach clenched. I had a very bad feeling about this. She held the iPad up. On the screen was my latest post, a picture of the very barbecue ribs that were currently sitting on our dinner table. Then she lifted her gaze from the screen, looking past me and into the kitchen, at the familiar tiled backsplash. The same brand of oven. The same quirky, cartoon bear-shaped spice rack I kept in the corner. All of it was perfectly visible in the background of the photo. The air in the room turned electric. I watched her expression shift from quiet contemplation to shock, and then, finally, to a breathtaking moment of pure understanding. My mind went completely blank, filled with a single, repeating thought. "Busted." My cover was blown. "Urban Eats. That's you." Isabella's voice was barely a whisper, a tremor of disbelief running through it. I rubbed the back of my neck, knowing there was no point in denying it. "Yeah," I admitted. "It's me." She stared at me for a long moment. And then, the impossible happened. She laughed. It wasn't a polite, restrained smile. It was a real, genuine laugh, the kind that made her eyes curve in a beautiful crescents and lit up her whole face. It was like watching the first flower of spring bloom after a long, hard winter. I was completely captivated. You're not mad," I stammered. "Why would I be mad?" she asked, still smiling. "I should be thrilled. My favorite blogger is my husband." The way she said, "my husband," so naturally and warmly, sent a jolt of pure happiness straight to my heart. That night, for the first time, we talked without a wall between us. We sat on the living room floor for hours. We talked about my food account, about the stresses of her job, and about the ridiculous, chaotic way our lives had collided. That's when I learned that her feelings for me had started to change long ago. It began with the first bowl of pasta I made for her. It grew when I stood up for her in front of our parents. It solidified when I protected her from Jake. The impenetrable iceberg I thought she was had been slowly melting all along, worn down by the simple, everyday warmth I'd brought into her life. My identity reveal was just the final push she needed to admit it to herself. "Alex," she said, her expression serious and sincere. "Let's make this real." "Okay," I said, taking her hand. I meant it more than I'd ever meant anything. A few days later, Jake showed up at our door again. This time, Isabella answered it. "Jake," she said, her voice calm and unwavering, "I want to thank you for running out on our wedding. If you hadn't, I never would have found Alex. He is 10 times the man you will ever be. We're very happy, so please don't ever bother us again." With that, she closed the door in his face. That evening, I posted a new update to Urban Eats. The caption read, "Made some barbecue ribs tonight. They're my wife's favorite." The picture wasn't just of the food. It was of our hands, intertwined on the table. A simple, elegant wedding band was visible on her finger. In the soft focus background, you could see Isabella's smiling profile. The comments section exploded. "OMG, Urban Eats is married. Wife. Did he say wife? I am heartbroken. My secret food blogger crush is off the market. Wait a minute, is that Isabella Rossi in the background? The CEO of Rossi Consulting?" I laughed as I scrolled through the comments, then handed my phone to Isabella. She leaned in to read, a smile playing on her lips. Then she leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Inside, the apartment was filled with a warm, gentle glow. My life, derailed by a wedding day disaster, had somehow ended up on the fast track to a happiness I never could have imagined. It was perfect,